How dare you lecture America about fiscal responsibility when the record shows that Democrats are the party of job creation and reducing deficits, and Republicans are the party of tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and exploding the deficit.
That was Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries calling out his Republican colleagues, and we'll get to the full clip in just a second. That was just a piece of it, but calling out his Republican colleagues over their posturing about caring about the debt and the deficit, and that is why they have to threaten throwing us into an economic catastrophe by not raising the debt ceiling to leverage spending cuts to crucial programs. They say we have to cut the spending to these programs because the darn Democratic Party has allowed things to go crazy, and now our debt and deficit are out of control. Well, the facts tell a very different story, and I'll outline some of those facts in just a bit. But first, here's more from Hakeem Jeffries.
Mr. Speaker, what is the Republican record? President Reagan comes into office, and the first thing that he does is massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and explodes the deficit. President George W. Bush comes into office, 2001, 2003, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, 2 failed wars, a deep recession, explodes the deficit. President Trump comes into office. First thing he does in 2017, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. The GOP tax scam. 83% of the benefits going to the wealthiest 1% in America, explodes the deficits. How dare you lecture America about fiscal responsibility when the record shows that Democrats are the party of job creation and reducing deficits, and Republicans are the party of tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and exploding the deficit. So we're not going to stand here and allow you to lecture us about fiscal responsibility. What this is an effort to try to extract deep, painful cuts on everyday Americans.
100% well said there from Hakeem Jeffries. So let's break down some of the misnomers that drive the economic and governing philosophy of the GOP. And unfortunately, so many Americans buy into these dishonest narratives. Even people I've talked to in my personal life who are left of center believe things about the GOP that are false, that make them out to be better than they are. The branding of the GOP, admittedly, is very effective. So what we hear from Republicans constantly is that it is the Democrats who are bad for the economy, right? We've all heard it. They're reckless spenders, fiscally irresponsible, and it's all just a disaster. But the truth is the exact opposite. And we'll get to the fiscal irresponsibility point in just a little bit. That's more what Hakeem Jeffries is talking about there. But another big misnomer is this economic point. So starting off, economic performance of the United States under Democratic presidents versus Republican presidents. When looking at all the primary variables that we use to judge economic performance, since World War II, the economy has performed significantly better under Democratic presidents than Republican presidents, whether it be job growth, unemployment, GDP growth. So noticeable and significant that economists can't explain it all away by the reality that different economic times will be present when a president comes into office. It's not that simple. Even when you can control for factors such as who had a majority in the House or Senate at this time during a presidency or that time during a presidency, better under Democrats. The economy is such a complicated beast. Yes, I've mentioned that before. So it's not fair to say this party is 100% worthy of getting all the credit for every good economic time, or even to say this elected leader should take all the blame or is fully responsible for good conditions, bad conditions economically. It's more complicated than that, for sure. But when you have decades of a pattern that can be observed, at the very least, Republicans are definitely wrong that they manage the economy better. And then I know what you're thinking. Look, it's because Democrats, they get into office, they spend a bunch of money, they juice up the economy so it looks good, but the Republicans come in and they're the adults and they reel things in with their fiscal responsibility. No, over the last 4 decades, Democrats have overseen smaller increases to the deficit, meaning increases in the year-over-year spending that goes beyond the revenue brought in, was less than Republicans. The one president that balanced the budget was a Democrat, and 60% of the debt growth since World War II took place under Republican presidents. So they aren't better for the economy. They aren't more fiscally responsible. Those are the facts. So then why do they insist that it is the Democrats that are the irresponsible spenders? Because if you can buy into that, then maybe you won't be as angry when they cut funding to entitlements. Or as Republicans have proposed in the bill they just passed, raising the work requirement age for food stamps. Maybe that will be perceived as making more sense if you buy into their dishonest narrative. But if you understand the reality of the difference in these policies and their impact on the country, then there's no way you would vote for a party that is willing to threaten a massive economic disaster by not raising the debt ceiling because they think too much money is being spent on you, but wouldn't dare raise the taxes on those who can afford it. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel.